All right, this will be the fifth part of Contact Report 31. It's a long one. Sorry, guys. It's what it is. Here we go. Billy, it is fair and good what you say there, Asket, but many claim that they are in connection, etc., with star people, otherworldly and spiritual and purely spiritual beings. Asket, in reality, this is only the truth to the extent that these Earth humans are connected with other terrestrial life forms through the Earth humanity's collective subconsciousness, and are inspired or even misled, cheated, and swindled by these, which are themselves still at very low levels, and which, compared to the great mass of Earth humans, are not, or are only further developed in consciousness in a very few areas. So the Earth has a collective subconsciousness. That's kind of new. In addition, however, there also appears low Earth human intelligences who, in their thirst for might, would like to hold the scepter over their fellow Earth humans, and being aware of the earthly religious heresies, they try to take advantage of this, and thus, according to their lust for power and their influence, the ones who have fallen into religions and sects. Billy, aha, Semjase has also spoken of this once before. However, it seems to me to be worth mentioning now the fact that Semjase, as well as Arahat Athersata, also said that for 2,000 years no contact of any kind has taken place with Earth humans, namely from extraterrestrials, pure spirit forms, etc. Asket, I have just explained that this refers only to really very high forms, but not to lower and spiritually and consciousness-based unhigh forms. Billy, what do you think about the influences of these low life forms and low essence forms on humans? If these actually intervene in the affairs of Earth humans, do they bring or have any benefit for the Earth humans? Asket, they have this only partially, like everything that is evolving. Often behind these contacts lurk collective human subconscious forms, etc., but also a very great danger which unfortunately the Earth humans will only be able to recognize after evil wars and catastrophes have befallen them. In many cases, powerful leaders on the Earth have also subconsciously been maliciously influenced by such collective human subconscious intelligences, and as desired, trigger death and destruction, ignorance, doom, deception, hatred, and annihilation. This in political as well as in religious areas, however. Individuals are also affected by these malicious collective subconscious powers, and as a consequence, then, in delusion or delusional belief, they commit murders, suicides, and mass murders, and trigger catastrophes. These human beings, who are influenced by such collective conscious intelligences, respectively, collective subconscious powers, however, and without exception, belong to sectarian religious beliefs, which constitute the main breeding ground. These Earth humans will be approached through the collective subconscious forces in a form that is transmitted to them, that the delusion that God personally, or Christ, or Satan, etc., has issued them the command for murder, war, or suicide, etc. If the Earth human would finally get rid of his or her deadly sects and religions, then these misleading or malicious collective subconscious intelligences, respectively, collective subconscious powers, they would lose their suggestive power over him or her, because where truth and logic and the compliance with the creational laws prevail, evil can no longer assert itself. I'm thinking these intelligences they talk about are the Ba'ath, the Giza intelligences. We'll hear more about them. But since these malicious human collective Subconsciousness intelligences are aware of this. They very skillfully control and direct the lives of sects and religions. They even understand how to propagate the madness of religions and sects, and to push the earth humans more and more to an evil religious sectarian fanaticism. In this connection, the infamous machinations of alleged contacts with extraterrestrials or high spirit forms, etc., are very popular with them. To the earth humans who listen to these subconscious voices, they present themselves as envoys from God, guardians of peace, keepers of the universe, angels on behalf of Jesus Christ, and as heralds of praise and salvation, etc. As collective subconsciousness-based inspirationally transmitted influences, these voices designate themselves as such and claim repeatedly as well that they are some high-standing spirit forms, deceased or even pure spirit forms, etc. In utilization of their diverse capabilities, the collective subconsciousness voices are also able to create hallucinations and fantastic apparitions for the earth humans, mostly on sectarian religious basis, such as saint figures, images of Christ, images of Mary, crosses, etc., which appear to the earth humans as miracles and entangle him or her deeper and more madly in the religions and sects. You could convince yourself that this is actually so when I led you to the crucifixion utensils in the depths of the Giza pyramid. But as the demonstration of this fact was not enough, then, for you to learn through the facts about these deadly earth religions, I granted you later, along with your friend, the journey into the past where you could convince yourself on the spot of the conniving operations of about 2,000 years ago. Asket took Billy 2,000 years back and introduced him to Emmanuel. Billy, man, girl, why do you mention these things? You have told me at the time that under no circumstances should I talk about it before you allowed me to do so. Now you are talking about it yourself, and if even a small error happens during the transmission from Semjase, I will automatically put everything on paper. You really have to be more careful. Asket, such errors as you accept them can never happen in transmissions. This on the one hand, but on the other hand, I speak about these things because the time has come to explain everything. Your task postulates that you now talk about all these things from our former contacts and that you convey all the knowledge to the earth humans. Billy, good grief, I am going crazy. I should talk about all that now? I will undoubtedly be put in the madhouse. I still cannot tell anyone that I have traveled 2,000 years into the past with you, and that the friend I traveled with probably became crazy because of this. I will be called mad and crazy when I announce that I have shaken hands with dear such and many others at the time, and also talked with them. And who would believe me when I say that I have appeared like an angel to some people and told them certain things, which in the course of time got distorted, but still got handed down until nearly 2,000 years later? Asket, this is just not possible that I should narrate everything. I would go down as the greatest lunatic of all time in the history of the world. I would even be insulted as the greatest lunatic of the entire universe and be put under lock and key for life, behind the thickest prison walls. You really cannot demand that from me, that I would do that, because for me that means the same as being a living dead. That is really too much, Asket. That would be madness. Asket, you know very well that many years ago you were designated by a name that would determine the rest of your life, namely by a lot of suffering and mistakes that are piled upon you. So you already knew then that the rest of your life would be exceptionally hard and difficult, and that you would also have to continue bearing much poverty and hardship. But for the truth's sake, and in spite of your knowledge, you wanted to take everything on yourself and not let your mission down by one iota. However, if you nevertheless feel the urge to release yourself of your task in the previously mentioned respect, then we will not ask you more about it anymore. We cannot and must not force you, because the truth can never be disseminated by force. Tell me your will, and we will act accordingly. If you do not want to, then none of us will penetrate ourselves into you any further. However, if you also want to serve the cause in this form, then it would please me. But the decision lies with you alone. Billy: of course, you deliberately just leave such things to me. Asket: your own will is crucial because you must be able to answer for your own actions or omissions. Billy: I really do not find it easy, Asket. What do you say to that? Semjase: and what do you think, Nera? Nera: it is an extraordinarily high demand on you, like you always are an extraordinarily earth human, if I may call you that under the present circumstances. Billy: may the devil take it. How should I understand this now? You and Asket, you both probably know a lot more about me than it is the case with Semjase and her people, concerning this, right? But what actually is it? Nera: you will find the solution of the mystery already in due time. Billy: with that I will have drunk and eaten, and my problem is probably also solved thereby, right? Semjase: it certainly is not so, and to be sure, neither for you nor for me and the others, and therefore I also cannot make the decision for you. This lies alone in the area of your own decisions. Billy: that is really damn solemn. There is probably no other possibility for me. Asket: you were never a wimp. Billy: aha! You also know that expression? Semjase: sure, Asket has gone into the heart of the matter. Billy: then I will walk once again to the gallows. More than hanged I can no longer be. Maybe I will also end up on a funeral pyre, or get quartered, drowned, broken on the wheel, strangled or shot, or who knows what. Asket: your path and life will be very hard and very difficult, and indeed also in reference to your wife, but everything will probably not be so bad that you must therefore have excessively bad thoughts. Billy: you easily say that. I will eventually get into the devil's kitchen. Asket: I said already that everything will not be so bad. Billy: I only ask myself what you imagine is absolutely bad and what you do not, but I do not expect an answer to it. You really do not have to tell me. Asket: that spares me from a very long explanation. Billy: I can easily imagine that, but now tell me what I should do. Asket: your decision is clear and final? Billy: do not ask for that too. Asket: you are still in possession of all the reports of our contacts from then. Have you kept them like I asked you to? Asket and Billy were in contact way before Semjase. I will transmit these to you via Semjase, respectively via her equipment anyway. Billy: I am not a buffoon and a word breaker, but they all contain many errors that were caused by the rapid transmission and should still be corrected by you or Semjase. Asket: of course, I understand. Semjase will assist you in this respect in conjunction with me. So, after the subsequent conversation, which will not be transmitted to you by Semjase, weave the reports of the contacts of that time into the contact reports of Semjase, which you will also have to complete and correct with her for the same reasons. Billy: how do you imagine that to be then? When Semjase transmits the reports to me by thoughts, these always come so fast and ceaselessly that I can hardly catch my breath. How am I supposed to still have the time to weave the reports from our contacts of those foregone years? And how do you both imagine that to be at all should I once again begin a new complex? That is simply too much, because on the one hand, I have to write Semjase's reports, and on the other hand, I also spend long hours hammering the long reports from Arahat Atharsata into the machine. I really do not know how to manage all this. I am not a magician, nor a superman. I often have to skip words or even whole sentences, or I write wrong concepts if I cannot decipher the transmitted symbols at the moment, because everything always goes so fast and I am not used to type at this transmission speed. Semjase, you complicate things. However, you will have enough time to write down the reports of the contacts and experiences you and Asket have had together. When at a later point in time, I transmit to you the report of this trip, and you write everything down, I will naturally give you enough time to write down the additional reports of Asket and yourself. I will then check your work together with you later. In due time, I will also report back to you again if you need my other transmissions. At a later point, you will put together all that is discussed by Asket and you in your contacts when we continue our confidential mission-based conversations afterwards. It is also not necessary for you to start a new work. Regarding the messages from Arahat Atharsata, my father will make use of the High Council to convey the Arahat Atharsata that you need some time, and therefore the transmissions should not be continued for the time being. In due time, we will again inform the level of otherwise. But now we want to get to the conversation through which we will initiate you in many secret things, which, however, never or only much later may you mention to other persons. Billy, okay, I will stick to it. Semjase, sure, we all know that. Parentheses, now also begins this conversation. Good, I will let myself be surprised. All right. So here we go. We're going to continue on with Contact Report 31. Asket. So these things discussed are only for you, and they fall under the seal of secrecy for other human beings. It is very important that you do not let them become revealed, because they must not influence the happenings of your world. You must not name these things officially until they have already happened. But that is then at your own discretion. Billy, you can rely on me. You know that. Semjase, we know that. Nera, you are a very interesting human being, because never before has Asket put so much trust in an Earth human being, not even Semjase. Billy, I am very honored by that, Nera. Thanks. Semjase, we must prepare slowly for the return. Billy, oh dear, I wish I could stay here forever. I feel so comfortable here. Asket, that is up to you. If you feel the need, there is nothing to stop you. Billy, there is no lack of wanting to, Asket, but I have my duty to consider and my family. Nera, you are extraordinarily duty conscious. I am very happy that I was allowed to see you. Farewell now, and go back to your world in peace. Perhaps we will meet again, but it may be many years before then. Billy, probably when I'm old and decrepit, eh? Nera, you will remain the same human being for us, because it is not your appearance that is important to us, but your personality. Billy, thank you very much, Nera. You said that very nicely. Nera, they are my honest thoughts. Now, farewell. My duty calls me, and I really must go now. Billy, well then, goodbye, Nera. Think of me too for once. Nera, I certainly will. Now, farewell. Nera leaves and disappears. Damn, how can life sometimes be so lousy? These dear human beings, man, oh man, and on earth, damn it, Asket, do not do that. You will only cause yourself pain. Billy, huh? Oh, I see. My thoughts. Semjase, sure, you are very emotional. Billy, all right, I just let myself go again. I am sorry. Asket, you should not be because your thoughts and feelings are very honest and good. Billy, oh, come on, do not do that now. If you allow me, and there is still time, I would like to ask you one more question. Ask it. Only ask. Billy, thanks. I thought you said that the device for photography was useless. I mean the one from Semjase. What about the one you want to make in collaboration? Do you think I will be able to take better pictures with it later, and that I will not always conflict with the grid frame? Ask it. I think the device will be good. But what do you mean by conflicting with the grid frame? Billy, you know the Semjase device is a bit complicated to photograph and a bit small. When I take a photo, I am always bothered by the small grid frame and the screen housing, and I always have that darn thing in the picture. I always have the half oval shape of the frame appearing in the picture. Ask it. I will concern myself in order that these flaws do not appear on my device. Billy, when am I supposed to be able to use this device? Semjase, of course, on the next trip. Billy, and when will that be? Semjase, that is not determined. In any case, it may take very long years or even decades until then, if at all. However, before going on another journey, I will kidnap you to another destination or another dimension. Billy, what do you mean by that? Semjase, each dimension of a universe has different parallel universes with parallel worlds. There are parallel dimensions, respectively, other space-time structures. So, also beyond your homeworld, the Earth, other dimensions and worlds exist. These parallel worlds exist in superordinate or subordinate dimensions in space-time structures that are foreign to normal time. On one of these kinds of parallel worlds, almost everything is the same as on the worlds of normal time. Only small differences prevail, especially in the times. And I want to travel with you into such a parallel world. It is a different form of time travel into the future or past than you experienced with Asket. Billy, fantastic. When is that supposed to be? Semjase, that is not clear yet. Billy, well, good. Can I at least take photos then? Photos there then? Semjase, sure, but they will not be any different than when you take them in the normal space of your Earth. There are the same human beings and buildings there as on Earth, only everything is just shifted in time and space. Billy, nevertheless, but will you not interfere with me again and spoil the pictures like you did with the group shots? Semjase, surely not, because I allow you to take photographs. Ask it, what are these things? What is it about these group shots? Semjase, I am not comfortable talking about it. Ask it, have you lost control of yourself and committed an illogical act? Semjase, yes, I am really displeased and embarrassed. Ask it, I see, that is why you do not want to talk about it, and I suppose you have also deliberately kept quiet about it. Semjase, sure. Billy, so, you have been keeping something from me, Semjase. Semjase, I actually did because I was embarrassed in front of you. Billy, oh, look at that. So you can do that too? That is good news because it makes you even more human and lovable in my eyes. But come on now, what little guilt did you have in the group shots? Semjase, I really do not want to talk about it. Ask it. This is not correct, Semjase. Billy, I also think so. Look, you really do not have to be ashamed in front of us. Every human being makes mistakes, though. I am sure it also happens to your high council. Or are you vain and feel your feminine vanity offended by revealing your guilty secret. Semjase, vanity is really foreign to me. I am simply ashamed. Billy, please, you do not have to. You really do not. Believe me. Semjase, you are not going to laugh at me? Billy, my very great word of honor. Semjase, what about you, Asket? Asket, I agree with what he said, but now speak. Semjase, good. I acted completely confused and lost all control over myself. Asket, but why? Semjase, I... ... Billy, leave it to Semjase. I will explain. Semjase allowed me to take photos of her beam ships on several occasions. She expressly told me that no one else was allowed to be present during these photographs except me. However, I thoroughly violated this wish because on one occasion I brought almost 10 persons with me to the place where I was to photograph the ship. I was then able to actually take photos, and I also took pictures of all the persons. But Semjase did not quite like that, and so she fiddled around with it before the film was developed, using some kind of rays and things that I did not understand, in order to destroy the pictures. But in doing so, she only destroyed the outer films of the roll, while the inner ones, which contained the said shots, or was it the other way around, only became damaged and unclear. That is the state of affairs at the time. Apparently, however, she felt guilty again, about which she has remained silent. Asket, is that so, dear friend? Semjase, sure. I did not know then that he could deliberately act illogically and thereby break all logic. Billy, now she actually starts laughing. Asket, you are laughing uproariously. Asket somewhat calmed down again. Semjase's situation amused me. The illogical manner of acting must have really upset her a lot. What did you really do? Semjase, it is incomprehensible to me because I have taken various illogical actions. It is really incomprehensible to me. Billy, she partially destroyed the film for me with some rays before it was developed. Asket, but why? If for some reason you did not want to allow the photographs to be taken, why did you appear at the scene of the event at all? Or if you had already been there, why did you not simply remove yourself? It is really illogical that you first had the pictures taken of you only to destroy them later. Semjase, I told you it is incomprehensible to me. I have really lost control of my actions. It is incomprehensible to me, and also extremely embarrassing. Billy, do not get agitated about it, girl. You have obviously just lost your head and suddenly started thinking with your feet. That can happen to anyone. But what have you really done about it? Something is just not right. No? Semjase, sure, you are right. For certain reasons, I did not want you to photograph the group of people. But nevertheless, I let the ship become visible for you and let you expose it on the film, which I later tried to destroy, but then I made another mistake. Further on, in my incomprehensible agitation, I projected the landscape image in front of your camera that I just saw from my ship. However, you did not notice this because you were in a hurry to take the photo and overlooked it. It was a similar projection to the one you were allowed to make with your 3 friends. Therefore, there should actually be 2 different images on your negatives or slides that flow into each other, at least in some of the pictures. I also sent out a focused light source at the same time as the projection in order to overexpose your film, but incomprehensibly, I did not succeed either. The light energy only produced the effect of a double exposure, which did not destroy the images, but only damaged their sharpness. Finally, I wanted to do one more thing and sent out an elimination beam shortly before the film was developed in order to destroy the film. But in my agitation, which I simply cannot understand, I programmed everything exactly in the reverse order, which destroyed the wrong half of the film. These are the facts of this happening. And there's a couple pictures that are out. Anyway, Asket, that was really very illogically handled by you. But the reason might be found in the fact that you had to face a completely unusual illogic which you were not able to cope with. This led to a short circuit, so to speak, in your otherwise logical manner of thinking, which set off a veritable chain reaction of illogical actions, which could only be ended by running through their sequence of actions to the end. Semjase, sure, it must be so, but I do not understand why I could act so irrationally. Billy, that is very simple. A human being who thinks only logically can no longer imagine illogic at all. But if such an illogic approaches him or her, they are no longer able to overcome it with their logic and fall into a confusion. This confusion, however, triggers illogical conclusions that lead to such actions. These in turn have to die down before rational logic is able to break through again. Asket, that is very precisely explained. Semjase, sure, now I understand, but it is very difficult to get into a form of thinking that is unusual. Billy, you are certainly right about that, Semjase, but I think it would be very good for you, and perhaps also for others, to venture into these forms of thought and explore them. Logic alone can be very dangerous if illogical forms are allowed to play into it. I believe that logic and illogic must work together in order to exist. One complements the other. Asket, again, that is very precisely explained, and it is also actually so. Semjase, I only understand this through conversation, so I still have some learning to do in these things too. Asket, then you have a good teacher, as the human beings of Earth say. Semjase, sure, I have already learned many things from him, and his teachings are very lasting. Unfortunately, however, we really must hurry now. We have already overrun our time. Asket, you can settle this again with a short time leap, can you not? Semjase, sure. Billy, is that supposed to make me younger again, or maybe a little older for a change? Asket, a few seconds younger. Billy, then it is not worth talking about. You see, I am getting sophisticated about these things. Asket, now really enough, dear friend. Farewell, and let your thoughts be with us. It was a wonderful pleasure for me to see you again. Farewell. Billy, Asket, what is it, would you girl? You, girl, you are crying. What is that? Asket, it is all right. Now, farewell, and perhaps we will meet again. Parentheses. Man, I suddenly feel queasy. The poor child. It hurts her very much. Such a dear child. She is indeed sad and very moved. How sweet she is. I will push off, otherwise I will also start crying. Ah, they are already coming. Good. They are still talking and do not notice my thoughts. Man, that dear child, how sad she is all of a sudden. I should better not say any more, or she will cry again. It is very sad. Ah, good, here is the boat. I will disappear into it. Good, I am in. Oh man, how can such a farewell hurt so damn much? Man, oh man. Semjase, stop your thinking now. It is just good Asket did not pay more attention, or she would have really cried more. She is very sad because you are a very good and dear friend to her. Billy, I know, Semjase, that is why I ran away so quickly. If I had not, I am sure I would still have been crying myself. Semjase, I do not believe you because you exercise tremendous self-control over yourself. So no matter how much your feelings storm inside you, you will only reveal them at the extreme limit. Billy, you seem to know me very well. Semjase, sure. I know quite clearly that you are guided by your emotions, but that you are able to control and dominate those emotions almost to the point of self-destruction. Parentheses. Semjase lets her ship glide out of the hangar, and a few minutes later we are back in Ptaah's great spacer. Like the first time, we are carried up by a glider, pass through the park, and we go back again to the center where Ptaah is sitting in his horseshoe. And parents. Ptaah, I see you are full of joy and very sad at the same time. Billy, you have very good eyes. I am sure you also understand why I feel so funny, do you not? Ptaah, how could I not? It is these stirrings in you which are of the same kind in sentient life forms in all universes. Billy, I know it is probably the law of love in a universal sense, but it is probably only appeals to those who have aligned their manner of thinking with these laws. Or am I wrong in this assumption? Ptaah, you prove yourself that you know it and do not merely assume it. It is so, as you say. You are very wise. Billy, thanks for the flowers, but what do we do now? Ptaah, we are just about to cross back into our own universe. After that, we will stay at the end of the barrier for 50 minutes to close it again. Billy, does it take that long? Semjase, sure, because we cannot just let it collapse. We have to close it systematically. That just takes time and requires a lot of care. From universe to universe, there are very few barrier points that can be used as a transition. They must also not be overused or overloaded, otherwise the barrier structure will be destroyed, which could lead to a universal ram belt catastrophe. What is a ram belt catastrophe? Anyway, so everything has to be done very precisely according to its order and according to the given laws, which of course always takes its time. Billy, I see. Then I guess I am now redundant for the next 50 minutes. Ptaah, we can talk quietly. The whole process of closure is programmed and will take care of itself without any special intervention on our part. Billy, that is fantastic. Could I then ask you some questions that have been bothering me for a long time? Ptaah, that was also meant to be. Billy, good. Thank you very much. Firstly, I would like to know what we are going to do after the barrier closure has been carried out. Ptaah, it is a fair question. The plan is to leap to different galaxies, visiting some planets and life forms with Semjase. Billy, man, this is great. Can I also talk to these life forms then? Semjase, I am afraid that will not be possible. We can only make our ship visible on very few worlds, so we cannot leave it either and have to be content with looking at everything from the beam ships. Nevertheless, it should be very interesting for you. Billy, it is a great pity, but I do not want to push. I thank you for at least giving me this opportunity. But now I have something else. Until now, through you, Semjase, the earthly religions have only ever been spoken of in a negative wise. At least that must be the impression the uninitiated get from your explanations. I myself have known for a long time that this impression is deceptive and that a very specific form of religion is addressed by the negative. But this does not emerge from the explanations you have given so far, which must surely give the uninitiated the idea that religion in and of itself is to be kicked into the dirt. This impression is wrong. I know that. But so far, nothing has been done on your part to correct this wrong impression. What is your position on this? Ptaah, this question is also completely justified, and I would like to answer it in detail. As with all things, everything requires a certain amount of preparation. Nothing can be undertaken and fulfilled without appropriate preparation. But if it is illogically done anyway, then an involuntary act takes place which can never be of value. An involuntary act is synonymous with illogic and rashness, and from such an involuntary act, therefore, only illogic can follow. If, therefore, the creation itself, for example, were to act involuntarily, there would be no laws and recommendations to secure the existence of all life forms, etc. There would be vain illogic and thus complete disorder. This means that nothing could exist, not even the creation. Arbitrariness, namely, means the free choice of the will and thus also the free choice of thought. An involuntary act, however, does not presuppose free will, but an act or situation or something else which one does not oneself consider is not capable of considering, or which one does not oneself want. Parentheses. Note, Billy of October 7, 2000. Etymologies, Wharton something or other. Behavior and action according to one's own whim. There's a bunch of German in here. I'm not going to be able to handle that. Anyway, free will, free choice of will, free will, voluntary resolution, inclination, consent, agreement, discretion is composed of the word treated under the meaning which has prevailed since the 18th century, aiming at the disregard of the interests of others, is already in the... I'm totally lost, so I'm not going to go there. We'll pass this paragraph. Proceeding at one's own discretion, arbitrarily, previously acting voluntarily by free decision. He's discussing the meaning of free will. Anyway, these are well-known terms that are used very often in everyday life, as well as in spiritual teaching and in numerous writings of the Figu. However, it has been shown that these terms are not understood correctly in their true meaning and in conjunction with many things, so that a useful explanation is necessary. The terms arbitrary and arbitrarily, in their original meaning, actually mean choice of will, according to the old word values, will and choice. In this traditional conceptual value, arbitrariness is, in a positive sense, a mental voluntariness or free will, an inclination or affection, an agreement, a discretion, or a voluntary resolution, whereby everything is always done of one's own free will. If a considered action wants to be done, or a considered word spoken, etc., then free will as well as conscious free thinking is therefore necessary for this, through which a conscious and thought-out thing therefore comes about, but which can be negative as well as positive according to the human being's liking. If a conscious thinking according to free will is brought into use, then an arbitrariness, respectively, a being arbitrary, takes place. Consequently, therefore, a conscious thinking according to free will is just as arbitrary as also an action, which is preceded by conscious thinking according to free will. Arbitrariness or arbitrary, therefore, does not mean anything negative according to old conceptual values, but something positive, such as acting according to free decision, through conscious thinking according to one's own free will. So everything that human beings do of their own accord must be based on arbitrariness, on the conscious choice of their free will, regardless of whether something negative or positive results from it. Thus, it is not possible for the human being to do or undertake something intended by him or her without making an effort of thought, within the framework of free decision by his or her free will. In the 18th century, a further conceptual value was created for arbitrariness and arbitrary, namely a completely negative value that expresses itself in the form of disregard for the rights and interests as well as the body and life of other human beings, but also through ruthlessness, arbitrary measures, arbitrary rule, negative arbitrariness, etc., and coercion, as well as high-handedness, negative action using one's own might, unrestrained, absolutist arbitrariness, and threats, etc. In this sense, therefore, the terms arbitrariness and arbitrarily and arbitrariness, etc., are of a decidedly negative sense and value. Consequently, there is no longer any connection whatsoever with the original positive value. An involuntary act presupposes that no thinking power whatsoever determines or can determine an act. This means that an action takes place involuntarily or without thought and without consistency, which can or must always lead to negative effects and events. Such involuntary actions, however, are only capable of life forms that have not yet recognized the mental consistency in their course of action. In other words, this means that such thinking life forms are still in very minimal values in terms of consciousness and do not yet have control over their thinking form and thinking power. Thus, they are also able to act involuntarily, that is, without prior deliberation, without prior corresponding thought work. They simply have not yet learned to really think. If this were also the case with the creation, then nothing would exist, for through illogic in this form, everything is destroyed before it is even created. A positive arbitrary act or process means real life in contrast to involuntariness. That is, an arbitrary act presupposes a rational thought capable of determining the consistency of an action. This means that the existence of an action is consequently assured. Thus, in turn, states, the consistency of the action is logical. Arbitrariness, then, is logic and deliberation and secures the existence of the action. Thus, by the logic of the creation itself, it is clearly evident that it therefore acts arbitrarily, deliberately, and logically, and thereby secures the existence of all life. Only where arbitrariness exists can the consistency of an action be determined and thereby life be begotten. Arbitrariness is therefore necessary in all things, so also in the search for and dissemination of truth and knowledge. Thus, in order to make a truth intelligible, a way to understanding must first be created by arbitrariness. In this arbitrariness means the method of communication between ignorance and understanding and between unknowledge and knowledge. Through arbitrariness, which in this form embodies the pure process of reflection and thought, the rational-based mind is stimulated to work and slowly led toward knowledge. If cognition is then sufficiently advanced, further teaching material can be supplied, which is then also actually further processed and utilized arbitrarily, whereby further cognitions are then gained. In a course of instruction, then, arbitrariness is of very great importance, for only through it is the logical consistency of the course of instruction guaranteed. But never can a teaching be taught in its deepest insights at the very beginning of the teaching. First, the necessary preparatory work and introductions are carried out in order to gradually move into the heart of the teaching and impart the actual knowledge. This process cannot be reversed, for this would mean an involuntary act, the consistency of which, in the course of action, would have to lead to disaster. Take the example of one of the professional teachings, as these are usual with you on earth. If a human being of your earth wants to become a physicist, she cannot immediately occupy himself with the deepest secrets and with the deepest knowledge of this profession and immediately learn everything. First, she must laboriously enter into the preliminary work and learn everything slowly from the bottom up. When she has done this and acquired a certain knowledge, only then can they occupy themselves with the deeper things and slowly penetrate into the center of knowledge of the profession. It is exactly the same with the spiritual teaching. Therefore, my daughter has yet reached into the deeper things of the spiritual teaching and explanations, for first the seed had to be sown. This, in turn, first had to adapt itself to the soil insofar as it fell on fertile ground. Then everything had to be enriched with vitalizing forces in order to be able to germinate. That is to say, the teaching parts and explanations, etc., delivered by Semjase so far were and are the foundation stone for the main work, which actually follows only now. What has been transmitted so far is in truth only the preliminary work by which Earth humans must be prepared for the core of the truth. This then is an introduction and preparation for understanding and grasping the subsequent teaching and explanations. If, therefore, Semjase had hitherto spoken only in a negative form about the earthly religions, then this has its justification in the fact that thereby earth humans had to be made aware of the falsity and unreality of their religions, for these are in every form evil and unreal, as this is not the case elsewhere in these forms in the worlds known to us in the universe, in this universe. When, therefore, the earthly religions are spoken of, they are meant in their negative forms as they exist and find their applications and effects on earth. Religions, in this sense, are a deadly danger not only on earth or for the human beings of earth, but they also hold deadly dangers for other worlds in this universe. Religions, in the sense in which they exist on earth, are indeed unique in the realm of the universe as we know it, and we find no equal in any realm. As a deadly danger, false religions dominate earth humans, and with them the whole planet, and have been stunting your world in terms of consciousness for thousands of years. All progress in consciousness is blocked by these religions and cannot progress. The evolution of consciousness and also the evolution of the spirit of the earth humans are hindered by the false teachings of the religions. The earthly religious traditions still contain real values and wisdom of their creational laws and recommendations, but these have been distorted by humanly generated false doctrines and made so unrecognizable that only a few human beings are able to recognize the effective truth from them. These few, however, who are able to work out the real truth from the scriptures and traditions are ostracized and cursed by the addicts of these false religions, if they are not able to spread the truth. Thus, when the earthly religions have been spoken of in negative terms by Semjase, the falsifications and lies that are sometimes deliberately built up in the religions in a deceitful manner have been and are addressed by it. But it also refers to those purely human, infamous works which you generally know simply as erroneous teachings and dogmas, purely infamous works of irresponsible or erroneous earth humans who, by means of these heresies which they have created, have been able to beat your whole humanity into poverty and servitude of consciousness. The earthly religions are called religions in name only, for in truth they are not such, but only cultic Ausartungen in a very evil sense. Religions in this form are always false and deadly. In truth, they are also not called religions, but cults. In your case, we call them cultic religions because really religion-related facts are interspersed and falsified with cultic dogmas and false doctrines. Religions of the earthly kind, if they are practiced elsewhere on foreign worlds, would be just as false and of deadly danger as are the cultic religions of earth humans. A truthful religion is the measure of all religions, that is, of all back-connecting facts. But this is also only correct in a creational law-based manner if it is based on harmonious cooperation with the religion, connecting back to or rejoining to the truth. This means that the reconnecting and reassembling must be in harmonious consonance and must work together logically. Religion cannot exist without religion, which is the back connecting to truth. But neither can religion exist without religion. Both factors must interlock and complement each other. In the earthly case, since the cultic religions prevail, the only salvation is for these existing false cultic religions to be eradicated and destroyed, to make way for the true religion in harmony with the religion, or the back connecting to the truth. This can only be done by the willing human beings aligning themselves only with the religion until they have won the battle over the cultic religions. Thus, at the present time and in the near future, only one direction of thought is the only correct one, namely the religion, or the reuniting. Earth humans must find the truth and reassemble it into the correct masses and forms. She must therefore think and act in a religious manner, so as to find again the truths from the real religion and to assemble them into the attained complex of religious knowledge. Only in this manner does she tread the correct path and follow the laws of the evolution of the spirit and the evolution of consciousness. In particular, the heresies of earthly cultic religions rest in cursing and blaspheming and denying the creation. Its omnipotence is questioned and replaced by blasphemous heresies with a God who is supposed to be the creator and who is also called the Lord of all things. But the creation is in truth the Gewalt, that which is the most almighty and the glory itself. Through various circumstances, and not least through the megalomania of human creatures, IHWHs, wisdom kings, people's leaders, and human race leaders, who are called God in earth human terms, have been pressed into the conceptual form of a creator and declared mendaciously to be the highest in the universe, namely creation itself. This is still evident today in the form of address of earth humans when they speak of their God as the creator. The concept of the masculine of he and him and the God could not be erased even over many millennia by the representatives of religion. Consequently, this concept still bears witness to the humanity of the God and Creator and the gods on earth today. Earth humans, however, in their thoughtless stupidity and their unwillingness to surrender to the truth, have been incapable of thinking about these things for a very long time. Stupidity, she continues to defend stupidly. She continues to defend the cultic religions, which are without exception attuned to some earth human being and to a heavenly deity. And practically every religion refers to a founder of a religion who, with one exception, is worshipped and glorified as the chosen one of creation, whereby the believers then practice a cult of man, which, however, is ultimately inherent in all earthly cultic religions. Creation itself is completely disregarded and condemned to nothingness, because through the cultic religions it is replaced by the madness of a human substitute and by a God creator. Creation itself, as the absolute omnipotence and glory of all being, is viciously denied and condemned. Whether this is done knowingly or in compliance with cultic religious heresies, or as a result of other world views, it remains the same. In any case, it means the most monstrous blasphemy of the creation that can be thought or uttered by any life form. Apart from the creation itself, nothing is venerable, universally loving, omnipotent, eternal, and awesome. Let me say that again. Apart from the creation itself, nothing is venerable, universally loving, omnipotent, eternal, and awesome. It is the beginning and the end of all being and the being itself. Apart from it, nothing exists. Billy, that is very detailed, and I believe that this in of itself should be understood by all human beings. That's easy for him to say. Most of it went over my head, but well, I'll try to sort it out. Even those who are caught up in their unreal religions, I think that this explanation of yours should be sufficient to dispel the impressions that religion in and of itself is simply wrong and should be eradicated. In my opinion, your words clearly state that in the negative sense, only cultic religions are being spoken of, i.e., those that have been falsified beyond recognition by human-made dogmas and other false teachings, and through which the creation is blasphemed in the most evil forms. These blasphemies, therefore, also include all worship and sanction of any human beings and objects, and to the same extent also the calling and elevating of a human being into the conceptual form of a creator or a creator's messenger. For a creator, in the cultic religious sense, is never the creation. A god, a creation, or otherwise somehow a human being or other life form can never be the creation itself. Creation is neither a he nor a she, for it is quite simply the creation, the sexless one, thus effectively an it. That is how I see it anyway. And we're going to park it right there. That'll do it for part 5, I think it is, that we're working on. And then we're going to get to part 6 in a few minutes. Stand by.